Hello and welcome to The Kit Locker, a podcast of Blacksite Media. My name is Simon Roberts.
And my name's Jason Blackiston.
And today, on our review of equipment of the Special Air Service SP Special Projects team from the early 80s into the 90s, coming into the more modern era, we are looking today at getting into places.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a lot of useful kit for getting into places.
Getting into places, technically known as
Method of entry.
or MOE for short. The teams would have perhaps a designated one or two MOE guys.
Yep, specially trained.
Might be carrying some of the equipment you see before you. So where shall we start? Shall we start with the famous abseil equipment?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Everybody's familiar with the SAS's entry onto the world stage at the Iranian embassy siege with a team abseiling from the back of the embassy onto the rear balconies. The main piece of equipment involved is the GQ Irvin Mark 1 abseil harness.
Now, GQ Irvin are the people that make the parachutes, correct?
Yes, that's right. They make all sorts of harnesses for aircraft pilots, other kinds of load-bearing systems, lifting straps, anything that needs secure stitching in order to bear weight.
Is this the one that they call the knacker cracker?
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Right. Your knacker's cracked by wearing one of these?
I've tried one of these. And
recreationally or professionally?
Recreationally.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
I did try one, and I thought there's probably a lot more comfortable harnesses on the market that didn't squeeze you somewhat.
As you can see. Anyway, moving swiftly on. This is a green nylon webbing with an extremely robust stitching.
Lots of stitching there.
With aluminium fittings and a carabiner or crab on the front, to which you attach what is known in the catalogue for this as your lowering link or your figure 8 descender.
Lowering link.
Yeah, that's how they describe it.
It's a very fancy name.
Again, another item is a solid sort of machine piece of aircraft aluminium in a figure 8, a horned figure 8. You sometimes see these without the horns on them. These seems to have been the British military issue ones adopted by the SAS.
I think the horns are more to stop the very catastrophic problem that when you haven't got the horns, you could get this problem happening where it slipped up and jammed in that position. Yeah. So the horns kind of stopped the rope working up.
Yes.
If you let the rope become slack, you landed on a ledge or something, and you let the rope get slack, and then you put weight back on it, it could sometimes slip up over.
Yes.
So the horns would try to stop that problem.
Interesting. I wonder why they don't have it on all of these kind of...
Well, I suppose it was one of those things, the early ones they developed then. Yeah. I mean, you can still buy ones without horns, but I suppose that they're more for sort of recreational use than...
Right. Do you want to demonstrate how the lowering link attaches to the rope with ease and efficiency?
Yes, ease and efficiency. I mean, it's you don't have to thread the rope all the way through. You can just poke it through the hole, put it up over the bottom.
Right.
Attach your carabiner.
Yep. And then
one part of the rope goes, you hold downwards.
Yep.
With your strong hand, with your weak hand, guide the rope, and you can control your descent.
Well, what's interesting about the use in the Special Air Service context is you will actually lock off the rope with your weak hand because your right hand can then be proximate to your holster so you can draw your weapon if you need to.
I mean, one of the problems with these types of devices, you have to constantly hang on to them. If you let go of the rope, you're going to plummet.
Right.
So you always have to have one hand on the rope, and I see you've got a later device, which allows you to go hands-free on the rope.
Yeah, this is
a little bit more controllable.
Yeah, so this is a Petzl descender, which you begin to see a bit more in the late 80s, early 90s. This has a kind of like a sort of dead man's handle operation. Yeah. Do you know how these work? It's
as you put weight on, this handle will sort of move out, and if you squeeze the handle in, it allows you to descend. It's just quite a simple device with friction around these pulleys, and the handle adjusts the level of friction to allow you to descend down the rope. And if something happens to you and you have to let go of the rope, you're not going to plummet to the ground like you would with one of these.
Yeah, but there is a sort of danger that if you panic and then squeeze the handle...
Squeeze the handle, you you will go down. And if you get that sort of flinch reaction and as you say, panic, squeeze, your hands squeeze in, you will climb it. But it's certainly a lot safer. If you go unconscious, then
that will arrest your descent. Yeah. Coming on a little bit further then, we have another type of abseil harness that appears for a period of time. I'm not sure how long this was used for, and I can sort of see why. I think it's another one.
Who makes this one then, Simon?
There's a label on the inside here that will tell us that this is actually, well, supplied at least by GD Specialist Suppliers.
Which we spoke about earlier.
But it could have been manufactured by Irvins, supplied through the company, who knows. It
looks very complicated.
It is.
Very tangled at the moment. We really needed a mannequin to put this on.
Do you know what? It's a full body harness system, and I've never kind of quite worked out how it goes on very easily. This is the problem. It is too overcomplicated.
It's probably one of these Krypton factor puzzles that you've got to work out.
It is a bit strange. I mean, the standard harness is quite simple. Round your waist, step through, put your legs in the loops, over your shoulder, the strap at the top, and that's it. It is somewhat more complicated. I have seen these in use in reference pictures. There are shots of troopers wearing them actually over body armour, over assault vests, but they do seem quite fiddly.
Okay, so the period of time that these were used?
Probably, I'd say, 1990 to maybe 1994, that kind of time.
Okay, and this one?
This has been used, well, at least from 1980 we know of at the Iranian Embassy, probably right through. I mean, I've seen the Royal Marines were using these up until about 15 years ago. And other manufacturers have come in since to supply MOD requirement.
All right. Well, should we clear the... Oh, let's talk about the rope bag there and the rope itself. This is sort of multi-plat. It's called a static rope. You get two types of ropes: static ropes, dynamic ropes. Dynamic ropes are used more for rock climbers, and they have an element of stretch. For abseiling, you need a static rope that doesn't stretch.
Change shape.
Some of the climbing ropes, because they're designed to take a shock when you fall, they're very, very stretchy. And you try and abseil on a stretchy climbing rope, all sorts of drama.
Hilarious complications ensue.
So it's a multi-plat static abseil.
This is, I think, known as Marlow rope, or is it that the name
Marlow's
of the manufacturer?
a company down in Sussex, in Howsham in Sussex, actually. Where I grew up, very close to where I grew up. And Marlow had traditionally made ropes in Howsham for many years. I do believe they're still there.
There you go. This rope for this particular operation is in a what we call a leg bag. Now, again, this is a difficult one to define the use of. Again, I don't abseil very much, so I don't know whether having your abseil rope collected on a bag strapped to your leg is an optimal way to descend. There have been pictures of these, but again, they are reference pictures, which are product catalogue shots. There is a famous one of a man descending on an abseil rope with an MP5 at the ready, as it were, appearing to fire into a window. And that, again, was our old friend Mel Parry, who was doing a product demonstration shot for a company who had made a leg bag. We don't know whether that went into service.
I mean, certainly with a leg bag, you've got to be very careful how you pack that rope, that it comes out untangled, unknotted, doesn't pick up its own loops and tie itself into a knot. Because generally, if you don't pack a rope properly, there was a very apt description in Jerome's Three Men in a Boat of how you can very carefully coil up a rope. And it doesn't matter how carefully you coil it up, you put it down, and then you turn your back and it's turned into all loops, the two ends have gone, and it's a mess.
I find this with my headphone cables sometimes.
And your hair probably as well.
And my hair as well, thanks,
So, you've got to be very careful for it to come out the bag unheeded by itself. But I suppose the only advantage of a leg bag is that you don't give the game away by dropping the rope down before you come tearing down the side of a building. Anyone looking out the window wondering why there's a rope dangling there. So it would give you a slight advantage there, that it feeds the rope out as you go down.
Unobtrusively.
That's a good word. I've tried a leg bag. They're quite hard. I mean, when you start dealing with things like this, you realise the advantage of training with the equipment. because I had a go and I found it very, very encumbering almost. So, yeah, good piece of kit. You've got to get rid of it, obviously, when you land. Unshackle from this, you've got to get that leg bag off fast. So
it's almost got a trade-off of utility versus complication.
Everything's a trade-off, yes.
There you go.
But you know, I'm sure there's some sort of rope geniuses that know, you know, that can shoot down the side of the building, pack that in a way that it all comes out lovely, and everyone lands and
just gymnastically fly down the side of the building. There you go.
Should we clear the table of these harnesses and bits?
You can just drop these.
Get rid of those.
Out the way.
And now we're down to the
we can look at the heavy metal. Okay. So the MOE, the method of entry, will involve perhaps a number of stout tools to open doors and windows.
And a certain amount of, well, not necessarily strength, more technique, I think. With these, I've seen some big lads using them and flailing away, and then a little guy with the best technique just come up and sort out the problem.
Well, before we get to the one that you want to talk about, which is this one, we'll actually look at just the humblest of tools which a man may have, because one of the things that's interesting when you see the equipping of an SP team is there is a vast number of tools that are brought for any operation.
Yeah, I mean, from your humble, let's say your crowbar that you probably all remember seeing in your dad's shed. Probably a cat burglar or something.
There'd be drills.
Yeah, I mean, this was sort of, you know, invented for, you know, general sort of pulling things apart. It's got this hooked end that you can pull a nail out. So it's really a piece of civilian equipment that was found useful. These are very actually useful. I shouldn't really give too much away, but you know, they're very useful for pushing through a padlock and twisting, and then the padlock would just pop.
Oh, I see. I thought you were going to say for grating cheese or something.
Yeah, well, that as well.
Cutting pastrami if you want to make yourself a sandwich. But...
so they're very good for levering, poking into things. Small, quite light, very, very, very useful, really.
And that's the interesting thing. There's a number of civilian tools are also involved, as well as the sort of specialist in tools.
Sort of like the record cutters there.
Bolt
what they
croppers?
call the bolt croppers, generally used by the security forces, cutting a padlock, cutting a clasp, fences, etc. Very, very powerful, geared. They've got like a cam system here that gives them a level of gearing. So you can...
You don't want to put your little finger in
go on,
these.
Put your little finger in there and I'll just nip it off.
Well, maybe
That's
not.
all right.
Okay. Don't do that at home.
Yeah, so quite a useful piece of kit. Relies very, very... they're very important to have the right angle on these jaws and to keep them fairly sharp. If they're ground wrong, they become very, very ineffective.
Yes.
But you'd be surprised, it does still take, even with that geared system, it does still take quite a bit of force to get through some hardened shackles and things like that.
Well, this is very often what I've been told when I spent a day with some armed police showing us a bit of technique. They said, well, it's always the biggest guy in the team who's going to be the MOE. Yeah. Because failing the use of the tools, you can always ram him into the door as a battering ram.
Brute force.
So other more basic things you have are our fire axes that we saw earlier on. The earlier type here, which probably dates back to, well, we know it dates back to, it's 1952 on it, but probably even earlier, as used by British fire brigades for many years.
Chopping and levering, quite a useful little tool, really.
Yeah. The other sort of, what would you say, percussive instrument will be the
blunt
the
force
sledgehammer.
Instrument.
Blunt force.
Yeah.
There we go. And it seems to be, from what I've understood, several varieties and sizes of sledgehammer in use. These, I think one of them, what's that? Is that a 4-pound one? And this is a 7-pound one. And there may be 12-pound sledgehammers as well, which you know, will require a certain amount of dexterous technique to
good for battering through doors,
smash through a door.
You know, sort of locked internal doors succumb to these quite quickly. Yeah. Fire doors, not so much. You know, UPVC doors are a bit bouncy hitting them with sledgehammers, but there's other methods for those.
We won't give away too many secret covert techniques, but we will say there probably are many men and many methods.
Absolutely, of achieving the same end, which is reducing a door or window
to
pieces,
into not being there. So
to a gaping hole.
So we come to this, the the money shot for the entry tool section. This is
Hooligan bar.
yeah.
In my language.
The name adapted from that of Fire Chief Halligan in New York, who developed this, I think, all the way back in the 1940s.
Yeah, very useful tool.
Yeah.
Very useful tool. Multiple ends. The most used sort of ends are these, this sort of wedge. It could be used in conjunction with a sledgehammer, bashed into a crack of a door, and then use the leverage to just lever the door open. Yeah, you put that in the crack, bash, bash. Give it some welly.
Right.
Things usually, crack after a while. The spike's quite interesting. I've seen these used for externally open fire doors. If you're on the outside, you can bash that spike through the fire door at waist height, and then go in with a bent piece of metal and pull the lever on the back of the door to gain entry. So the fire brigade sort of developed those sort of techniques. So quite a useful tool. The other end generally for prying, levering, that slot for lifting staples and putting around a clasp. If you've got a padlock on a clasp, you can slide that down and
crank,
sort of lever it, crank, twist, and bust it off.
Yeah, and that's quite a substantial, heavy piece of kit there.
It is.
You sometimes see them. They can have a dedicated metal clip strap which you can put over your shoulder. But sometimes with you say you reference pictures with the SAS using them, they've just tied simple bungee cord around them in order to have a sort of basic sling.
You've got a carrier for all this, haven't you?
Yeah. There's been various kinds of carriers for MOE tools developed, backpack style carriers. We've got one in particular that the Metropolitan Police used back in the 1990s, which we'll show you on another video. Okay,
and well, at the very end, we've covered this in another video.
Yeah.
The good old-fashioned shotgun.
AKA the Barclay card, as it seems to be referenced. That was an old 1980s advert slogan for Barclay card, because it gets you in anywhere.
Oh, right, apparently. I see. Yeah. Well, it's a Remington 870 pump-action shotgun, short-barreled, and then...
That's quite a long barrel on that one, I have to say.
Well, it's short for a shotgun.
You can... fair enough. Yeah, you can get, obviously, varying lengths.
To a sporting shotgun, and the ammunition in these, we've got the Klukas Hatton round, invented by Reg Klukas, a good MOE tool. We've covered this in another video. Powdered lead for basically just shooting off hinges.
Yeah, I mean, Reg Klukas, another of those interesting characters who was an inventor and innovator
very interesting.
For MOE tools.
Yeah, so that just puts a lot of energy into the hinge. You'd approach the door, put the shotgun against the hinge, boom. The powdered lead encased in wax would just disintegrate the hinge, and the energy would be absorbed in the door, not causing any flying shrapnel on the other side of the door. Obviously, there's going to be a bit, the hinge could go flying, but you're not going to get shot or a lump of lead or anything flying. I think they're a bit more sort of environmentally friendly and don't use powdered lead now.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the round irritant personnel, which is not really a method of entry tool, but it does go well. They use it in the shotgun to fire through doors to fill the room with CS powder, basically. So, we've got a fair sort of a little arrangement of method of entry tools there.
That's right, sort of, involving but not limited to, if you put it that way, in terms of the inventory that is held by the SB team. Other tools are available, much more elaborate, but we won't go into them in this video. If we do, we'll go into them in another video, which will be coming up. So if you want to see that, like and subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and we will then see you next time.
I'm off to the bank. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.